Good morning. My name again is Doug Bailey. I'm with Digium, and mostly I work with the gateways, though I've had some little bit of exposure with the phones. I was going to come here and talk about gun safety for my cat, but I guess most people really don't care about that here at this AstriCon. So we're going to move into utilizing APIs, a much more interesting topic for both your Digium phone and your Digium Gateway. And the big issue, or the big opportunity with these APIs is that you can go and tailor these products into your custom solution that your customers want. And though they are different products and the APIs are slightly different in how they approach things, again, they allow you to come up with a way of customizing it and meeting your specific customer needs. Initially, I'm going into the phone API, and the phone API on Digium is basically it's a JavaScript environment that resides on the phone and allows you to customize different applications that you can run and to show visually to the end user on the phone. The applications can run and be served out via both Switchvox as well as basic Asterisk using the digital phone module for Asterisk. In addition, the phones come with a full development environment that allows you to go and implement your programs in JavaScript and then get a debug output as well as allow you to customize how it's actually called into the system. Along with the phone API and the JavaScript environment is a series of JavaScript modules that you can use to leverage the resources of the phone and basically speed up your development. We basically have the core capabilities that will allow you to go in and kick off your program. You can put things into the background. You can go and do some different UI elements to display different images that come in. You can make calls into existing Asterisk boxes to get information via, say, the AMI interface. There's a large number of core classes, or core classes as well as other classes that will basically make your development a lot quicker. First thing that we need to know about developing your own app is that you need to get a Digium phone basically onto your own private network and enable it with the latest firmware, or actually this is 1.3 isn't the latest firmware, this is a little bit dated, but basically firmware that has the capability of running the debug modules. The way you get this firmware updated is you download it from the phones.digium site, and then you can go into the graphical interface from the phone, and it's a simple two-click process for getting it uploaded and programmed into your phone. So basically then when you come into your phone through the graphical interface, under the app dev page, you can come in and it gives you basically a visual window where you can go in and create an app, or you can have an existing app on the phone, and then you can go over into the actions, and you can go in and hit the settings, which is going to allow you to go in and come to a development page. What you can do here is, again, you can go and activate the program by hitting the show. You can always have it running, or if you take it off of having it running, you can start it and stop it at different points. And you can always go and push into get the debug log to see whether you have any type of log messages to indicate how is the application doing what you want. In addition, you have the ability to pass in on a phone-by-phone basis a set of command line parameters that can then be so that each phone that you send out can be custom tailored to the particular endpoint user's needs. So basically, when you build, you go in and you build your app in JavaScript. For example, there are a number of different Hello World or big clock type demos if you go to the phones.digium.com site. And for example, being able to show a large, basically clock on your phone can be done in about 130 lines of JavaScript code. You write your app, you basically create a JSON file, which is just basically a listing of the files that you're packaging up. Zip that into Tarball, download it to the phone, and run it. And as long as you have the development environment enabled on your phone, you can go in and run those elements. And every time if you make changes, you just go in and change your files, re-zip it up, and send it down to the phone via the web page. Again, reiterating, we're going through we're going into the debug log to get information as far as how it's running. Again, I think I just covered most of the stuff: starting, stopping, and making sure you can repeat through it. That's a brief summary of what's going on in the phone API. I think the guys here will have an actual application of how they've actually used these APIs on the phone, and basically give you the capability to see what a real-world application is. There are some pages, for example, if you go over to the website listed down here on the bottom, the phone applications with Asterisk, you can go and it'll give you indications of what type of information you have to put in the configuration files to identify the particular application and which phone it's going to go on, and then how to serve it out when that phone gets provisioned via the DPMA module. I would suggest, if you're really interested in doing this, go to the phones.digium.com site, look in the phone API side. There is a wealth of information out there in these pages that go through step-by-step instructions on how to do it with some very simplistic applications. But again, will lead you into the capability of doing something that's real world. And there's also, we have a clearinghouse on the site of some applications that have been made available for everybody. Switching over to basically the Digium Gateway API. This is for the 1-port, 2-port, 4-port, 8-port Digium Gateways. And what we're doing here is we are using a HTTP JSON-based transaction system to go and be able to allow you to configure or monitor the operations of the gateways. And what we've done in this is that we have taken a piece of how we do things via the GUI in our configuration of the system, and we've made it available to external agents by using the particular HTTPS post and JSON formatted data transfer. Key element is most things, if it's in the GUI, most likely it's going to be available via the API. And we have a list of the supported API methods up at the site on the asterisk.org wiki display Digium Gateway API methods. The nuts and bolts of it is basically going in and logging into the gateway using a HTTP post with presenting your username and password. This is all done over HTTPS. In the actual transaction, the data is unencrypted, but HTTPS should encrypt that. After the login credentials have been provided to you, then you do a series of HTTPS posts to the JSON page with data in the appropriate format. And the gateway will then come back and respond with an indication of success or failure. For example, this is an idea of how we would present data to the gateway for setting the timing parameters, how we do clock recovery for the spans. And basically, we put it into a request. We have a known T1E1 settings saving method, and then we just put, basically enumerate the information. From a Wireshark capture, this is an idea of what goes on. The client comes in, he requests information, he tries to pass information as a user ID of admin and the password, the admin password as admin, so admin, which is the default. We come back from the gateway, giving you your credentials in cookie format. We then go and you would do a client request where you have, again, what was similar to what we had previously, a request information. This one is slightly different. This one's for a SIP endpoint, kind of a little bit obfuscated with all the spaces and information in there. That goes up to the gateway processes it, looks at it, says, okay, is this good, is it bad, does it meet what I need, and comes back with a response indicating whether it was a success, were there any errors. And you basically do these transactions back and forth, do multiple under one thing. I believe the xCALLY guys have done a real good presentation on how they can take a real simple configuration within the gateway and be able to make it work. It's not real simple. There are some things that are a little bit of a pain. We've been asked some things like, for example, when you configure one object and then refer to it in other elements, you may end up having to go and query to find out what the object ID that it was given to it, the database references. It would be nice if there were a name lookup mechanisms to make it a little bit simple to do that, but at this point we don't have that. We've also been asked oftentimes, why don't you provide me a provisioning file? And that's a really good question, and I don't have an answer for you, other than the fact that we have not spent the time and effort to be able to do full file provisioning. Will we do that? I'm not sure. It's being looked at. You have to press and make it a priority with us to do that. So basically, just in summary, we're giving you a powerful tool set that allows you to customize both our phones and our gateway products to be able to customize it to your particular needs. We believe they are straightforward to use and deploy. You may disagree with us, but again, I think they are fairly usable. And again, the information, if you want to look up phones.digium.com. It'll have a wealth of information on how to build your applications. And then for the gateways, not as well documented, but still has all the information you need on the configuration elements and the API methods. And at that point, I'm going to pass off and give the podium over so that you can see some actual real-world applications of these APIs.
Okay, so my name is Diego Gosmar. I'm the Chief Executive of Xenialab. It's a pleasure to have with me today also my colleague, Giuseppe Innamorato, my colleague and the company co-founder. And today we will run through the main features about our customer care product, which is called xCALLY, totally based on Asterisk. Moving then to some concept about the architecture. And to wrap up, Giuseppe will show you some example of integration we performed both with the Digium Gateways and Digium IP Phones. So a few words about who we are. This was the situation in 2007 when the company was founded for guys with a few ideas and some Asterisk from scratch experience. Actually, we started to work on Asterisk in the early 2004. The company has been growing up in the last few years, especially in 2009, we started to build in our xCALLY solution. And in 2012, we started to market the solution also internationally. Coming up this year, we released the new version, which is called xCALLY-Shuttle, and Giuseppe will talk about it. This is the team right now. Some developers and passionate product manager, marketing guys. So it's really a pleasure to work with all of them. And I'd like to thank all our teams for the job they've done. But it's not everything just about software. We also like to do kart racing, wine meeting, play football, and something like that. Before entering in the technical stuff, I would like also to do special thanks, first of all, to Digium and all the Asterisk community, because without Asterisk, we won't be able to do what we have done so far. And also let me special thanks to an Italian guy who actually in 1849 invented the telephony. As a matter of fact, Antonio Meucci born and died very poor because he didn't have any money to patent the solution. But in 2002, the United States Congress acknowledged the authorship of the invention of Antonio. So probably one of the reasons we are here today is also thanks to our Italian fellows. So let's now move to the solution very quickly. This is the new architecture overview. This is the new web interface we built. It's based on the totally asynchronous interface using Node.js, AngularJS, and Giuseppe will talk about here much more. The solution is focused on the contact center market. So this is the main interface the supervisor can use to have a snapshot about the call center monitor. So dashboard, real-time dashboard, and a few other stuff. We have a drag-and-drop IVR module, which is called CALLY-Square, totally HTML5 responsive, totally based on the real time. Also, this kind of solution. Here you can design both simple auto-attentat or complex IVR script, maybe to integrate external database during the call flow, call external web service, and recently we also performed some integration with the external automatic speech recognition engine. So this was the supervisor view. The agents, the call center agents can use basically 3 ways in order to work. First is to use our telephone bar, mainly based on Windows. It's a FAT application that you can use to log in, log out, perform the pause, and all the call center staff and agent need to do. Or they can use external SIP phones, so soft phones, or also external SIP phones like the Digium IP phones. And we are also working on WebRTC. We are releasing an experimental version of WebRTC right now. Finally, the report. Reports are very important for contact center. We have built a report interface, so the supervisor can access to some or ready-to-use template. For example, how many calls has been managed inside the queue, service level agreement provided, and so on and so forth. But they can do more. They can also design, actually, their reportings. So they can work on the SQL metrics, and they can add, modify, or create new reports. A few words about the market. Currently, we provide the solution in many countries, and also in many of those countries, also, let me say, emerging markets are using very much our solution together, especially with the Digium Gateways for E1s and IP phones, or also T1. What next? Today, well, this year we have been working a lot, very hard on the Shuttle version, the new release. We are releasing an outbound dialer, a predictive dialer with the API, RESTful API to interact with our dialer. A new version of the phone bar, the WebRTC I mentioned, and what we are working for next year is especially the multi-channel capability. So chat, SMS, fax, everything integrated in the single solution.
Thank you. Okay, my name is Giuseppe Innamorato. I worked with Diego since the beginning. And I will speak about the architecture of our solution. Then we will move on some integration we did and the mechanism that we use for integration. and then we will see some Digium integration both for the gateway and for the telephones. Basically, we have a three-level architecture where the core architecture is based obviously on the Asterisk system and with database in real-time way. And we use Node.js and PHP on the server side to manage the upper level of the architecture. That means the user experience. All the user experience is managed by AngularJS framework that in conjunction with Node.js allow us to have a powerful system to push information on the client side, and then the mechanism is really powerful in that way. In the bottom, we have the third level of the architecture. That means the possibility to integrate in CTI mode external application. That means that when a call comes in, you can have a pop-up of who is calling you, or better, the information about your customer. That can be collected as well with the IOR system from Digit or with ASR tool, that means automatic speech recognition. All integration we made and are present in this xCALLY-IOR that you see before. Now, this is an example of a call coming in that is managed by the IOR system that make a lookup in the database and show a pop-up both in a Digium phone and integrate, in this case, a ticketing system like Zendesk. That's quite famous in all the world now. The integration are very simple to configure in our system. It's just a question of compiling a form. And after that, you can set up a trigger. A trigger means when you want that the CTI comes up. And that can be on the ringing phase, or normally when the agent answers the call. Or if you want to do operations after the call, you can set up a trigger as well when the hang-up happens. Now we will move on the Digium API integration and what we did with our solution. We did an integration with the possibility to configure the Digium Gateway directly from xCALLY interface. That means we can provide a unique user experience for the system administrator of the contact center. In this way, you can manage both the queue configuration, the agent configuration, all the parameters about the call center, plus the lines, the PSTN lines in this case. This is ready since last year. Here there is an example where a call comes in a Digium Gateway, goes in the IOR system, and the IOR system display on the Digium phone the pop-up with all the information about the customer who is calling. And as well, a CRM application that is used for taking information with the customer. Here there is a Digium phone, and there is another sample we did that allow you to see the presence, the queue presence on the phone. Let's suppose that the agent has to work a lot with the computer, has stuff to do there, and he doesn't want to see his status, or he doesn't do the status on the PC. He can have both the information also on the phone. And in this case, you can see on the left the queue name and the status on the queue of these agents. Now we will show you a very quick video that shows the operation for doing that. Okay, this is the application that is installed on the phone, as we saw before. And the application has obviously the configuration of the xCALLY server. Now we will see how the system administrator is going to, in real-time basis, add one queue to the agent, and in this case, it will be add this queue, the billing queue, to the Vener agent, and in real-time basis, the agent will see on his phone that he belongs to a new queue. Here we are. Now, the team leader or the system administrator will put remotely impose the agent directly from the real-time section of xCALLY software, and the agent, we will see that on that queue, it will not be anymore available, but it will be on pause. Now, the administrator remove the pause and put it again available. And then this is a very simple application that is possible to build with the Digium API. And here there are some samples that you will find in the presentation. How this application is made is really, really simple, and this demonstrates that the power of Digium API, in this case for the IP phones. Okay, I finished my presentation. Now I will hand over to Gus. And thank you all for your attention.
Hi everyone, my name is Gus. I work for Nexacomm, a New York-based cloud integrator. That's my real name. Nobody calls me like that. I'm a web integrator, wife, 2 kids, and definitely lots of bills. I definitely love Asterisk, and I am still 100% biodegradable. Not going to be long before I change that. So I will be speaking about the Digium phone app engine and the Digium phone module for Asterisk. So the first thing you need to know, and if you jump by the Digium side, you'll fiddle with it and figure this one out, but I just thought it would be better if I just throw it in there. So basically, when you're working with DPMA, you have to know that you're fully supported for versions 11 onwards, right? Before that, it will depend on the version that you have. For 1.8, it's going to be certified, and for .10, it's going to be Digium branch only, okay? So if you go to the website, as Doug just mentioned, you'll find a lot of applications already written there that you can fiddle with and learn. And I suggest that if you want to play with that, that's the first place I would go to. So, okay, so we have the Digium's phone API. Now, okay, what can we do and how? First things first. With DPMA, I believe Doug mentioned it, there's a lot of things that come out of the box. So you go, you plug your Digium phone, and all of a sudden you have a lot of beautiful applications right from the bat. Queues, information, Spark, you'll have pretty much everything there is on it. And it's really, really easy. Oh, of course, easy provisioning. That's one of its highest values. It's really, really easy to provision a phone when you use the DPA module. Now, I said it before, we are integrators, and I know most of you must have flown to Vegas, really happy flight. Well, if I had to describe the integrator's life, it's getting to Vegas in a Pinto across the desert. And that's what happens. And some of our clients can't have the DPMA version. For instance, one of our clients is a major medicinal equipment provider and is HIPAA compliant, and they can't just move away from the version that we installed a few years ago. So, so we have to go with a non-DPMA. Now, the beauty of the Digium phone engine, this is the one running in the phone, which is V8 base engine. V8 is the engine that pretty much fuels the Chrome browser and is the one that is node based on. It's the one that's actually in the phone. So with that engine, we can actually write a lot of applications and even match some of the applications that are offered by the DPMA, okay? And not because we wanted to go through that desert, but because we had to, is that we did. So what we had to write was basically similar provision and system, hot desking, obviously queues, extended queues or reach queues, and visual voicemail and recorded browser. Okay, so a little friend back there was going what, and we're going to see basically how. This is basically the structure for the DPMA itself, even though I haven't seen the code and I can't be allowed to see it. It's pretty much what it does, right? So we have the phones working on a RESTful API, and we have a REST API, and we have a daemon, something in there running that talks to Asterisk in different ways. Now, this one is the one that we wrote. Obviously, the DPMA module is not like this. A few years ago, a friend of mine said to me when we were doing a job for the Do Not Call project, why we were writing C AGIs instead of writing a module. Well, because of the law, we couldn't, because of the Asterisk license, we couldn't write a module. Of course, it was easier, right? So that's exactly what Digium did. They wrote the module, which is the right thing to do, right? But we couldn't do that. So what we did is we wrote it in the outside, and basically we talked to Asterisk via AMI. One little piece of advice here, and I'm trying to go really fast because we have very little time, but one piece of advice is that you keep 2 threads at least. I know, you know, AMI is via sockets, and so it's by nature bidirectional. But to keep things organized, you might as well keep 1 thread for the incoming events and another thread for the outgoing actions. So the first time we had to kind of build the, in a very basic way, was voicemail, visual voicemail. So your phones will come up, obviously they're SIP phones, so they will react to the subscribe, notify, message wait and indicator infrastructure, right? I'm sorry, logic that lies behind SIP. And so you will have message wait indicator via SIP, okay? But you will not be able to browse those voicemails, right out of the box, if you don't have DPMA. With DPMA, all this goes away. One thing that you need to know is with the Digium App Engine, you do not have access to the SIP layer. So for most of you who have provisioned zillions of phones and love them so much, you know that that's a very important piece of information. So no, you don't have it. And there's a reasoning behind it, trust me. Or don't. And obviously it doesn't have visual voicemail. So there's tricks to this, okay? First of all, the first thing you need to love, even while building applications, is the Digium phone message waiting indicator event capture, actually. You have the event, and obviously you can capture that event. You can listen to it. So the thing is that when you get your SIP notify, right, the system in the phone will trigger that event, okay, the message waiting indicator event internally. It's not going to do anything with it, but you can do something with it, okay? So at that point, what happens is that our application listener executes the call to the middleware. Remember the diagram that we saw before? And so that middleware server sends back into the phone a JSON. It's pretty much a fancy array, right? And it sends that into the application, and then the application displays it. So it's pretty basic. It's a basic workaround, but it really works. Also, it's very important to know that the type of storage that you have in the phone Take a look at it, read it carefully. The documentation is there and it's clear, but sometimes we tend to read really fast and assume things. Don't do that. Because there are certain non-volatile memories that are not that non-volatile, okay? They're non-volatile, but between applications and during the whole lifespan of the phone. But once you reboot the phone or you reprovision the phone, they are gone, okay? Another thing that was useful and we learned the hard way was to store pages meaning the amount of information, right, that needs to be displayed locally, but a certain amount, right? And this is because we all had to fiddle with and fight against the Cilium voicemail messages users. You know, the one that you try and say you've got 100,000 voicemails. Okay, so that's not good. Okay, that's not good, especially for JSON. Although JSON is very efficient in comparison to XML, we know that that's almost an insult because XML is the most inefficient thing that was ever created. Run searches remotely. So that's another thing that simplifies the application, right? It's way easier to write on the middleware server than it is on the phone. And also these phones are limited, so it's not like you can load them up with a zillion lines of JavaScript. Obviously, all the VM actions are implemented in the VM. The voicemail actions are implemented in the middleware server. Provisioning and hot desking. So provisioning, the first thing that will come to your mind when you're trying to provision one of these phones is that you will not find the CPUI option to add the MAC address into the user agent. For people that have had to fight with provisioning, know how useful that is, especially when you're working with a zip server, right, in between like what we usually do with Camellia. So that's not there, right? So when your zip message comes in, you really have no hint on who's this phone, aside from the IP, which may or may not say anything, right? Remember that nowadays, especially in our kind of business, most IP addresses are not inside the LAN. That and easily retrieve the MAC address. And again, no access to the zip layer. So the no access to zip layer, I didn't spoil it before, and I'm going to spoil it now. A question that was in the first row over there, which was, are these, can I deploy these applications? Is there a way to deploy them, to manage them centrally, right? To really have control over this and not just play with my phone. And yes, you do. Okay, you do. You can do that with command line. You can write your own daemon. It's pretty straightforward, or your set of scripts to provision them. And you don't need to use the GUI to do so. Okay, which makes sense. Otherwise, remember that all of these applications need to be provisioned into the phones. They need to be loaded into the phones. Okay, so it's easy when you have one, but it's not easy when you have 500 in a big building, right? You're not going to go one by one provision each phone. It's insane, or impractical. Unless you're charging by the hour. Okay, so when the same LAN, that's not a problem. When they're not in the same LAN, then obviously it's going to be MAC-based, and we use the typical, CPU or dummy context to provision the phones. And the hot desking application process, well, that's pretty straightforward actually, right? You use the UI extended libraries to get the login form, username and PIN. Then you use the net request class. The net request class is the one that's going to help you the most. It's basically the one that you will be using to do HTTP requests and be able to then deserialize the JSON answer, right? Which again, I thought the dog had it somewhere there also. And then, well, the middleware server checks the values and acts based on that. Use. So, and the phone out of the box, it looks awful, right? Because no. Well, most phones don't have this out of the box. I mean, It's actually an exception that with a phone only installing a free module like DPMA, you would have all of these out of the box. But it wasn't our case, like I said. Keep in mind the desert and the Pinto. So no queues with generic data, no agent data, no queue stats, anything. Okay, so the main trick here, in our case, we needed kind of a twofold application. The main one in front of the phone, in the forefront, had to have all the generic information for that agent. This particular call center is skill-based, not queue-based, so it's more dynamic, kind of. It doesn't say queue something or queue this. It says, Spanish, sales, and Caterpillar, right? So the agent really needs to know which skills are being enabled at a given time, and that changes because call centers are live things. They constantly change, unless they don't have a good manager, of course. In that case, they stay the same, and then they say, why is this not working? Well, you need to adjust. So we really need a twofold. Basically, all the generic information regarding the agent, what he was about to pick up, right? And then in the background, or basically via a key, the agent would access all the actions, basically. Not only log in, log out, but actually break, go to the bathroom, pretty much everything that he had to do. It needs to report, right? Otherwise, his stats go down, and that's not a good thing, especially when there's a manager in the call center. So we use a forefront and a background application, and like I said, the one for status and the other one for actions. And the way they talk to each other is via events. These events are trigger. You can trigger events internally in the phone. Of course, you cannot trigger system events, right? You cannot trigger an event saying, on call. Of course not, because and that's a good thing that you can't do. This is one of the things that I was saying before, that trust me, there's things that the app is not allowing you to do and you shouldn't, right? Because there's a good way to do it, actually. But you can create your own events. Why would I do that? Well, so you can have different applications talk to each other. Or even better, not talk to each other, because that's easy, listen to each other. So that allows you to create a series of applications, right, that are all asynchronous, that they listen to each other, and based on different things, they trigger actions, right? And that's what we did here. I don't know how we're on time. I'm really good. Okay, I already said all of this, basically. One thing that was very important here is that these allowed us actually to do something that we would not have been able to do with a DPMA, which was to integrate with third-party applications, okay? Because call centers often do have very specific metrics applications, right, for management. And so the beauty of this is that the phone detaches from the PBX ecosystem. It allows the phone to talk to other systems, right? And not necessarily go through the PBX, which, by the way, it's also a very good thing because the PBX is usually busy enough, right? You don't want to, we have this provision server, why don't we put it in the PBX? Bad idea. But the PBX can have a web server. Yes, it can, but it's not a good idea. Unless you have 10 phones, then it's not a big problem, right? You have 500, then you need to start to think about it, start thinking about those things. So the main API, well, actually I mentioned them already, but the main API components that we get advantage from in this one, and again, I'm trying to really synthesize, are the Digium app config XML. This one does a lot of things. Not only provisions the application, but also allows you, remember I said that you don't have access to the zip layer? Well, because you don't have to, right? And you don't need to. You are provisioning the phone. So you're telling the phone which zip credentials it has, whether it be 1 or 5, it doesn't matter. So you can put that in the XML configuration file under the application section. So that application would actually be able to access those pieces of information at the application layer because you loaded it, okay? And so there you go. You actually don't really need to go into the SID layer. Actually, Doug showed a screen where there was application, there were fields under it, okay? Well, those fields, right, are variables and values that you can populate via the app-config XML configuration file. Okay, so there you go. You have a good provisioning server, which is pretty straightforward. You can put all the information there, and it's going to be, and the application will be able to use it. The exit after background is another jewel. It basically, by default, it's true. So it means that when you have an application, you activate it. Basically, it comes into the foreground. It starts running basically. And when you close it, when it goes into the background, it closes. This is a good thing, especially when you have a device that doesn't have, you know, an immense amount of resources. It's just a desk phone. It does pretty good for that. But for some cases, you want to put this in false. Sorry. So that way you can actually keep your applications running in the background. So if you're looking for some parameter saying background true or something like that, you're never going to find it. Okay? Is this one false? Okay. Okay, the Digium events, I already talked about those. That entire family basically handles both triggering events and listening to them. It's very, very important. And the read file has to do with what I said before about storing information in the phone memory for use across, and there's different types. You can look it over. Bear in mind that you have volatile and non-volatile, and some non-volatiles are not like so much like that. And you have shared memories, which is basically your buffer between applications, which is very, very useful. You can use that instead of the events if you want. I like the events better. But. Okay, so I told you the pros at least, so it's really up to you now, guys, to go and build things. I know I had a blast with the applications that Digium put up in GitHub with Alicia and a couple other members. I don't know, I'm a geek, that's all. Thank you.